Joining me right now is Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett of Texas. He sits on the House Ways and Means Committee, which of course is trying to get the IRS and Treasury Department to turn over years of President Trump's tax returns. Congressman, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Kate.
So the Treasury Secretary, let's talk about what your committee is trying to get done here, to get Donald Trump's tax returns turned over. The Treasury Secretary has now blown through 2 deadlines. He says that he is going to respond by May 6th. Do you want the committee to wait until then to take next steps, or do you think you all should make your next move now?
Well, I hope the committee will act very soon. It took a long time to make this request. It wasn't made until this month. It's clear that Mr. Mnuchin has had time to consider this since last fall. He doesn't need any more legal advice. It's just a question of how many more excuses he can make. You know,
so do you wait until May 6th, or do you want Chairman Neal to move before then?
Well, I'll entrust that decision to Chairman Neal, but I would encourage him to act promptly. I think we passed the time when we can just say kumbaya and hope that Republicans will do right. With the exception of Mitt Romney, I've yet to hear a single Republican even recognize the horrible conduct of the president reflected in the Mueller report.
Now, I've heard some top Democrats like Jerry Nadler of Judiciary say that if the administration continues to stonewall when it comes to handing over information or responding to subpoenas, basically what you guys are all asking for, then they could move towards punishment that hasn't really been seen in basically, forever. Jailing officials who defy subpoenas, imposing fines until they comply. It's not necessarily, going to happen immediately, but it's on the table, is basically how Jerry Nadler has said. Would you support that if it gets to that?
Well, Chairman Nadler is absolutely right. Congress has an inherent contempt power, and while we don't want to use that power, we see a president who has shown great affinity for walls, now in the process of constructing something much broader and stronger than anything ever contemplated for the Rio Grande River. And that is a wall to destroy the systems of checks and balances that our founders recognized was so essential to democracy. You know, he recently had the tyrant from Egypt there to celebrate his accomplishments. He had the tyrant from the Philippines. He admires these strong men from afar, the love affair with the head of North Korea. I'm not saying he would use the same tactics, but he prefers a government in which the judiciary is there to act only in his behalf, that those of us who speak out against him are guilty of treason for not clapping enough when he speaks, that all of our freedom of the press is to be reduced to fake news unless it supports the president. All of this weakening of the systems, of the institutions that are so important to our government, and now he thinks he can just pick and choose which laws to follow and can ignore the separate power that Congress has. And we need to move forward vigorously now and recognize what we're dealing with, and that is a president who's unhinged, out of control, surrounded by a sleazy group of people who have no regard for democracy or for telling the truth.
But Congressman, to my question though, would you support a move like that? Yes, it is possible for Democrats to do it, but would you support fining and jailing folks who don't comply with subpoenas?
I don't believe any of them are above the law. If they will not comply with a valid subpoena, then yes, we need to take that kind of action that is within the inherent power of Congress, and not just directed toward the president. That needs to be directed toward the individuals who violate their responsibilities, who ignore the law. And so I'm in favor of taking action against them if they're not there to testify when subpoenaed, if they don't produce the documents that they're required to provide. That is the responsibility of Congress to exercise the system of checks and balances. I understand this comes as a big surprise to this administration, because for the first 2 years, they've had only overlook, no oversight. Now they have to deal with a body that has the same powers as the executive in terms of its stature in our government, and they have to respond and comply with the law, not just pick and choose what they want to comply with.
The other side of this is that taking the administration to court, of course, to get the information you want, to get the tax returns, to get information from his accounting firm, to get the information or get the testimony over security clearance. I mean, just to name a few, because there's a lot of information that various committees are asking for. in the House. If you go to court over all of this, though, I do wonder, are you afraid that that diverts precious time and resources away from pushing forward the Democratic agenda that you all won back the House talking about in 2018?
Well, first let me say that there was a time you would expect that the courts would respond and the Justice Department would fulfill its responsibilities. Unfortunately, Attorney General Barr has viewed himself essentially as the president's personal attorney, and there's no confidence that the Justice Department will fulfill its responsibilities to enforce a subpoena from the Congress, and that's why our inherent power is so important. Yes, I've been very involved in seeking a solution to prescription price gouging that's occurring to hurt families all over this country. And I'd like to see some coming together to have candidate Trump or President Trump act like candidate Trump on this serious problem. Our infrastructure problems and our deteriorating transportation system. It would be great to do that. None of those are more important than preserving our democracy. And we need accountability from this administration. The disclosures in the Mueller report are very alarming.
So you think, Congressman, that right now these efforts that we've been talking about just now, these take precedent over the other items on the agenda?
Absolutely. There is no item more important than preserving our democracy from the attack, the continued assaults of Donald Trump through his lies, through his total avoidance of any accountability. I think we can do more than one thing at the same time. I'm in favor of our moving forward and trying to respond to the agenda of the American people, but just getting some bipartisan agreement on a minor aspect of that as an alternative to preserving our democracy, the two are not even in the same category.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett, thanks for coming in. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.